Another episode inspired this episode. I was talking with Kara about integrative health and her disordered eating experience and how that influenced her career. But I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to this particular topic, disordered eating. So I have on Eliza, who is an eating disorder recovery coach and 10 years recovered in her own life. Hi, Eliza. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on. And we're going to dive right into this really intense topic. And I just appreciate your vulnerability up front. So, talk to me about your disordered eating story, where this all started and began for you. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah. Like I had bulimia and orthorexia, but also I wanna maybe start a little bit further because people don't realize like how it actually like you don't develop like a full-blown eating disorder overnight. And normally I don't know, like at least like for me it developed actually for years and years. For example, when I was a teenager, I would say maybe like 12 years old or something. Your body starts to develop. I remember I started to feel like my hips are wider, and I was one of the first ones in my class, like from the girls who developed boobs. And I just felt like my body was changing, and I felt like that this is why I was so vulnerable to like, oh, I want to like maybe control it or diet. And this is when I started to diet. And first diet I remember I did was I stopped eating after 6 p.m. And nowadays I think like this is called intermittent fasting. But basically I stopped eating after 6 p.m. I allowed myself to eat whatever I wanted throughout the day. But of course, since I restricted in the evening, I lost weight. And of course, like for a period of time I felt good, and like it was working. And I could keep it up for like half a year. But then there was like one particular night when I was like out with my friends and I was like so hungry, but I was like, no, I can't eat. And it was like finally when I gave in. And I think like this was the first time I had my proper like a binge eating episode. And I was like so taken aback, like what happened? Oh my God, I can't do this. I will gain all the weight back and everything. Um, but yeah, I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't stop myself from eating at the night and everything, and all the weight came back. And then my mom, she never commented on my body or pushed me to diet, but she did some diets herself. And one time, like we went to a little vacation, and she was following this. I guess it was like a Atkins type of diet, and I was like, oh, can I try it as well? Like, can we do it both of us? And I guess like my mom didn't know anything about like diets or how it's like harmful, and especially to a teenager, um, even for adults actually. Like, but yeah, like I again lost weight. I remember like one time I almost fainted, and my mom was like, oh my God, like what's happening? You need to eat. And she was kind of like a little bit worried. So, but basically, like from that period of time, I guess my disordered eating started, and I developed like episodes of binge eating, overeating. It wasn't like bulimia yet or something, and I called myself more like an emotion eater, or I thought like, oh, I'm just addicted to the yummy foods or something. But now I know that it wasn't like emotion eating or food addiction. You can develop all of those symptoms because you're restricting food. So anyway, then like fast forward to when I was about like 20 years old, I went through this like heartbreak, right? Like I was so in love, and we were together for a few years, but we broke up. And I would say that I fell into some kind of depression or something, and I abused like alcohol, and I was like smoking back then, and you know and I just like felt like completely like in a black hole, and I had like really like dark thoughts and everything. And I guess like it was huge stress what I went through. And now looking back, I know like this is why I started to develop some health symptoms, like because of stress. My hair was falling out. I developed like acne on my face. I had digestion issues. But back then, of course, like I started to Google like how can I fix myself. I didn't want to take like the drugs for the skin, right? Because for example, like things like Accutane, like it can be so like there can be so many bad symptoms from taking drugs. So I'm like, I don't want to take drugs. I want to heal myself from the inside out, right? Like I had a good goal. I didn't want to like, oh, I just want to diet to be thin or whatever. I just thought like I want to like heal myself. I want to like feel good, and I don't want to have those symptoms. But this is when I Googled. I found the clean eating, high carb, low fat vegan uh, eating, raw foodism, then fruitarianism, all those things. And yeah, I was just generally say like I had to eat like very clean. Of course, I didn't went to, I don't know, this fruitarianism overnight, but maybe first I cut out sugar, then I cut out dairy because like normally you hear like, oh, those are that are bad for your skin and everything. So basically I started to cut out more and more foods. I started to do those like weeks of I'm just gonna eat clean the whole week. But since I was already like binge eater or overeater, then I would always end my week with a binge, basically going to a shop and buying all the foods that I restricted, all the processed foods, junk food, like everything that was like out of limits. Those are the foods that I wanted and craved, and I binge on them. And after one particular, binge session, I just ate like so much that I was physically so uncomfortable, like so painfully full that I went to the toilet and I vomited, right? And I was at the first moment I was already aware, oh my God, like this is what bulimics do. Like this is like, no, like I'm not developing bulimia. Like this is just one time. I was just overly full. I'm just like, helping my body. I just ate too much, blah blah blah. And but the truth is, because I didn't stop this mindset, and I didn't blame the eating, the clean eating. I thought like this is healthy. There's nothing wrong with that. I didn't see that how it's restrictive. Then the binges continued, and the vomiting also continued. So yeah, this is how it all began, basically.
I think the thing that stands out the most for me is hearing you talk about just these wide variety of experiences. I think a lot of people, when they hear disordered eating, they automatically think, oh, this person is eating and then throwing up. That's it. There's no in between, there's
Mm-hmm,
no other things
mm-hmm,
happening. And that was so apparent for me. And your beginning story is just these different fluctuations of things that we're seeing in culture. You're seeing and experiencing things that other people are, different diets, body image issues, your clean eating and wanting to go on a new path. None of it is inherently bad, but for someone who is constantly seeing things in a certain light, it's going to
mm-hmm,
reflect. And that's what I'm seeing happened in your journey. So, talking about that moment where you start realizing, oh, this is what this is. When did that happen? Like,
mm-hmm.
oh, this is a disordered eating pattern.
Yeah. I guess like, from the point I said that the first time I vomited, and then the pattern just continued. But I think like all the time I was just telling myself or lying to myself, like, no, like I don't want to be thin necessarily. I just want to like eat healthy for my health, like for my skin, for my hair, for my digestion, everything. And I genuinely thought that certain foods are causing the digestion issues, for example, gluten and dairy. And because the thing with those foods are if you actually start to restrict those foods and don't eat them for a while, then your stomach can stop producing the necessary enzymes to digest them properly. And this is why it can seem that, oh, every time I now eat them a little bit, I have symptoms. So I thought that I'm doing the good thing, and that's the thing with clean eating, especially like for me, was that I knew that it wasn't normal like the symptoms, but I just didn't see like what can I do differently, or like I can't eat all the foods, or it's like I'm just trying to do it for my health. So like this is where you get entrapped, and also the more you restrict, the more you start to fear all kinds of foods and have like guilt and plus the symptoms and everything. So it's like a big trap. You push yourself into a corner, kind of.
When you were going through all of this, I know you mentioned your mom and how she was doing diets and you wanted to come on, but was there anyone around you who was picking up on you doing this, or was you really good at hiding what was happening?
Yeah, like really good at hiding. But I guess like from the outside, like this is what people, like most people don't know, I think, is that it's not only about that you lose a bunch of weight or you restrict your calories like heavily or something, but it can also manifest as like clean eating or yeah, just that avoiding some foods or you can't eat out in a restaurant like randomly. You're like, no, I can't go because they don't serve this and that. And of course, like people do have like real intolerances and everything, but this is not like what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about how those symptoms, people, at least like the diet culture is so normalized that often those behaviors are praised. Like people lose weight or try to eat healthy. It's like, oh my God, like you are so inspirational. Like, how do you do it? Like even when I remember like I was young and I stopped eating after 6 p.m. like my mom didn't mean anything bad, but even she was like, oh my God, like you're so like how I say, like you are so good at this, or like yeah, like good job. And now I'm like, what I know as a coach, I'm like, I don't know, like like she wasn't a bad mom, but I think like it's so normalized, like people don't see it as a problem. So but of course, like the purging or the vomiting, this is what I could mask. Like I would only do it when I was like completely alone, and since yeah, I didn't look like I have an eating disorder, then it was pretty easy to hide it.
What was the turning moment when you realized, okay, I can't do this anymore and I need to get help or I need to change my patterns? Because I hear you mentioning a lot of this, and because you were doing a lot of stuff alone, I imagine that turning point had to be significant for you to finally take that
Mhm.
step to turn the corner.
Yeah, so I feel like for me, I always wanted to recover and get better, but I search for the answers from the wrong places. For example, the high carb, low fat vegan diet I was following, like they promote no calorie restriction. They say like if you want to be successful at this or be vegan, you have to eat enough calories, like 2,500 plus calories, like if you eat less, like you are restricting, so of course you're gonna binge and everything. So I genuinely thought that this is not restrictive, and it's cure for my binges. But I just thought like the other foods are just addictive, and I just have to, I don't know, change my taste buds. And like they talk about all those things, like yeah, totally, like your taste buds are gonna change. And so I looked for the answers from the wrong places. But I had like always this like I don't want to keep on binging. I don't want to keep having bulimia. Like I don't understand why it happens. And and I guess like 1 year I was searching for answers or googling something about recovery or bulimia, and I stumbled upon this like one book, and she talked about how she recovered. I think like she had bulimia and anorexia for like 10 years or something, and she talked about how she recovered from it fully by intuitive eating. And I was like, okay, great. And so much of her book like made sense to me and everything. But in the end of the book, like she wrote out what she ate for I guess like a week or something. And there was like all kinds of different foods and normal foods and cooked foods, and but also like she went out to eat with her friends, like hamburgers and french fries. And I was like, okay, like I can't do it because this is so unhealthy. Like she's so lost, and like I thought like she's like poor her, like oh she doesn't know what she's doing. Like oh like I was so brainwashed in my area. So I was like, no, I can't do it. And then I continued to struggle for another year. And then another year went past, and I guess already like also like searching and googling, and I downloaded an ebook again and everything, and I read it, and I'm like, I've already read this book. And it was the same book, like I bought it again. But then reading the book and even the like the what she had eaten that week, like I finally it clicked for me, and it was like yeah, like all this year I wasn't like calorie restricting anymore, but I was heavily restricting on foods that I could eat. And I was like so desperate and so tired at that point. And I knew like what I'm doing is not working. I was like 100% convinced that it's not working. So I guess like I was finally open-minded enough to, okay, I'm gonna try it. Like at this point, I have nothing else to lose. And if I need to quit raw food, whatever, like in Estonia, like I had such a community and, I had business around it and everything. It wasn't like an easy thing to change, but I was like, I'm gonna change my whole life. I'm gonna change my friends. I'm gonna change my work, what I do, everything, if I can just recover. So I was willing to like, yeah, just let go all restrictions. So my recovery started when I finally decided that I have to let go of all restriction, not just calorie restriction, but also food restriction and eat the hamburgers and French fries and all the foods I thought are like so unhealthy. And yeah, so this is
Wow.
how it started.
Hearing you say that, where you're like, I have to just give up and let go of everything to start over, is a hard decision to make. You're
Yeah.
sitting here, especially the experience you had for so long where you thought you were doing the right thing. It's so, it's so important hearing you say, I thought I was doing the right thing. I was clean eating. I was doing everything that people were telling me to do because it's a guise in a way. If you are doing it in a way that is hurting your body instead of helping your
Mm-hmm.
body.
Mm-hmm.
And restricting foods is a huge part of that whole movement and intuitive eating. Everything you mentioned there is just so important. So thank you for sharing that because I also know that that turning point had to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But I applaud your ability to let go and say, okay, I have to start over and I need to do this for myself. And you saw that. You made that turning point, which is why you're a coach now to help people do the
Yeah.
same thing. What are some things you wish you had known going through this experience originally? Like if you could see
Mm-hmm.
someone right now that's in your shoes 10 plus years
Mm-hmm.
ago, what's something you wish you could have had the information?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Since my eating disorder was so tied to the clean eating and being healthy and everything, like of course at first when I started, I didn't have this connection. But then like after years of, trying to eat clean and be healthy and everything, but at the same time like realizing like I have an eating disorder. So it's like I wish people would see that as long as you have an eating disorder, then no clean eating is going to make you healthy. Like eating disorder is not healthy. It's like those foods, whatever you deem as unhealthy, are not going to hurt you as much as the eating disorder will hurt you. So it's like, yeah, getting rid of the eating disorder is the top priority. And also, I don't know, like we can get into it about everything, but it's like it's not like I eat now hamburgers and French fries every day. And this is what people think, like, oh, if I just let go and I eat whatever I want. And of course, if you are so deprived, there's gonna be a recovery phase when you have things like extreme hunger, extreme cravings. It's so normal to go through it where you gravitate towards the exact foods you craved. But as long as you stop restricting, compensating, of course, like purging, I don't know, using whatever methods you use to compensate, then over time, like your cravings and hunger cues and everything will go back to balance. So yeah, it's like it was one of my biggest fears because every time I previously allowed myself to have those foods, I binged. So I'm like, how can that be the answer? But I didn't realize that you have to stop restricting along with that, all the compensating and over exercising, purging, like whatever. So then over time, the cravings can go back to normal. And now, like I'm into an intuitive eater, and I'm like a normal eater. I even sometimes don't like the term intuitive eating because it seems like, oh, like what are the steps? Like it's just normal eating. Like it's
Yeah.
just normal eating, and I don't binge on junk food anymore. I eat quite a good like variety. Also, I love like good like home cooked meals, add like fruits, veggies. I can eat out. I have no longer like no stress, no guilt over food or anything. So yeah, just people maybe when they are struggling and in this clean eating mindset, they have so many fears like, oh, but then I would just eat junk forever. But actually, this is not the case. Actually, the opposite is true. Your hunger can go back to normal.
It sounds like there's just so many different extremes. And as long as you're going to those extremes, it's not good for you. Whether it's the extreme side of being so healthy and such a clean eater, or the extreme of overeating, of binging, of there's a balance, just as there is with everything in life, there's a balance with food. And you should be able to have fun with your friends while also understanding that, like, there are good foods that are going to fuel your body. There's also foods out there that are going to make you feel a little bit more sluggish, and they might have things in them that your body isn't used to breaking down. But that balance is hard to understand because we've been taught so many different things. So the
Hmm.
mind plays a lot of tricks as you're going through all of this. You're like, well, this is good and that's bad. When in reality, you just need to have things that make your body feel good. That's kind of the
Hmm.
bottom line. And
Hmm.
it's so important hearing you say the different variations of that again, because I think we've been taught to believe disordered eating is very associated with anorexia or bulimia, and that's it. But
Hmm.
there's so much in between that that brings those out. Now being in this post side of recovery and you're 10 years outside of your eating disorder, what's it been like for you? Is there still triggers? Is it a battle every day that you're fighting?
No, I wouldn't say there are still triggers in terms of the eating disorder. But like I said before, like I learned my lesson that so many health symptoms can actually start with stress. And I wish like I would have known it before that like I don't need to start clean eating or cutting out foods or something. But firstly, like at least like for me, like for my body, stress is a big trigger for me to have symptoms. For example, in 2018 or 17 or something, when I was already recovered for I don't know like how many years, maybe 5 years or so, I also went through stress, and it was more like work stress and yeah, and I also started to develop the same symptoms, like my hair was falling out, acne again, digestion issues. Um, but um, but now I was like, no, I won't start to restrict foods, even though I was afraid to go to a doctor to ask about my digestion because I was afraid they will tell me like, yeah, cut out dairy, cut out blah blah blah, and I'm like, I can't I can't cut out food, so I'm just gonna focus on managing my stress and yeah, and it worked. And over time, all the symptoms went away. I didn't change anything in my diet. The acne went away, the hair loss, the digestion issue is a little bit different story because I continued to have the symptoms for 3 years because I was so afraid to go to doctor because of I thought maybe they would say restrict something, but luckily I went to doctor and they discovered I had the H. pylori bacteria, um, and I guess like from my research, I think stress can also trigger it. Like so many people have it already in their gut, but due to stress, it can just how I say multiply or I don't know. It's like I don't want to use any like incorrect terms. And I did like 1 week of antibiotics, and the stomach issues went away, and I didn't have to start restricting. And so what I just want to say is that I finally learned the lesson that at least like for me, like stress is a big trigger for health symptoms, and I don't need to start restricting foods, but just start to focus on reducing stress and managing my stress levels and like sleep more and do like meditation, relaxation, more time for myself, delegate stuff to other people, ask more help. And yeah, I didn't went back to my eating disorder because I learned my lesson. And I know like from my other clients, like stress is such a trigger for them as well. And sometimes they start to restrict again and it's just like yeah, I guess like a big learning lesson is the link to the stress.
Yeah, we don't ever realize how much stress impacts our lives. And we have stress every single day with working and the roles we play in people's lives. Like, stress is a major factor in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we ever give it enough credit for how it can kind of treat our
Yeah.
bodies and the pressure it puts on us. So That's a really important one and one that I wouldn't have thought of to be
Mm-hmm.
like the
Yeah,
underlying, here's the real key issue that you
yeah,
need to work through.
yeah.
I love to end our episodes on whether it's a piece of advice or perspective that you have for people who are on this journey, they're going through it, maybe they're towards the end, maybe they're right in the middle. What's something that you would love them to know from you?
Like one of the things I mentioned already that really helped me to even start my recovery, like I had so many objections and hesitations and everything, but was the fact that I finally was like open-minded to like, okay, like this is clearly not working what I'm doing. And then I was finally like open-minded to hear different things, even things that contradicted to my previous beliefs about like healthy eating and everything. For example, like we talk about like eating, junk foods, like how can this be, helping you recover? Like I understand totally, like it doesn't make sense. But of course, like we have such a limited period of time here to talk about it. But if you would take time to maybe see my work or like read my book or something, then you would see like how it makes total sense. And also things about like going through extreme hunger in recovery, like how this is not you binging, this is just aftermath after restriction and how your body is trying to catch up. And also things like the fear of weight gain. I had such a belief about coming from the diet mentality and everything that I need to be responsible for my weight, and if I just let go of the control, my weight will just spiral out of control. But actually, like what I also talk about a lot as well is like your body actually has like a set point weight that is mostly determined by genetics, like regulated by your like normal hunger cues and metabolism, which is the goal of full recovery, right? Like get your body functioning normally again. So then actually your body actually wants to start maintaining your set point effortlessly. You just eat normally, like naturally you're gonna be able to then eat when hungry, stop and full. And there's nothing like I need to manage on a daily basis on my weight. And I didn't know that actually my body wants to stay in homeostasis. Like it doesn't want to like just fluctuate with weight. And if it does, then there's something going on, either stress or maybe food restriction that causes you to binge eat or whatever. So yeah, just to be more open-minded to the ideas of like letting go of restrictions, because in all restrictive eating disorders, like this is the first step to start with. You cannot recover from eating disorder while still restricting. Like you cannot. Yes, it's like a mental issue, but it's also very physical, and restriction fuels those symptoms.
Thank you for sharing those things. You had said one more thing that I want to like go into, and it reminded me of this question that I had for you where
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know on this side of things. I'm someone who luckily hasn't had the experience with disordered eating.
Mm-hmm.
What is something I can do to support my friends or people that I know that go through these things? Like, I never want to do or say the wrong things. I want to make sure that I'm
Yeah.
a safe space for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
What is someone on the opposite side of this who can make sure they're
Mm-hmm.
doing the right things? What is something we can do better?
Yeah. I think it also depends on whether or not like they are open about the issues they're going through. I don't know if it's like a good idea to start to talk about it if they don't bring it up or something, because it can be like a very sensitive topic. But yeah, and sometimes like just being there for them and maybe be vulnerable yourself about whatever else you're going through. So maybe it will signal them also to open up. But the most often, I think like people need rather somebody to just listen and to understand, of course, not to kind of say like, yeah, you're doing the right thing or something, but just like listen and understand and be compassionate and kind, and not go with like, oh, you should do this or you should do that or something, especially if you don't have experience. And then yes, like it would be very easy to say the wrong thing. But also in general, like with eating disorders, you never want to mention about like food or diets. Like definitely no diet talk around them, definitely no talk about like, oh, this food is good or bad, healthy, unhealthy, like any of those labels. no talk about their weight or anybody else's weight. Even criticizing your own body can be, say to them that, oh yeah, like bodies are something to be criticized, or weight is something to be feared or controlled. So I guess, like, yeah, like, don't talk about food, weights, and those things. And maybe, yeah, you can urge the conversation about something else, because even they need to get their mind off from the food and eating. And the last thing maybe they need is someone close to them start to like ask a bunch of questions and tell them like what to do or something. But it's like so hard because I don't know, like, of course, somebody who is like a parent or something, and sometimes you need to have like an intervention if you see like things are really going bad. But it's like very often I see that it's so hard to help somebody who is not ready, or who doesn't think like there is something wrong. Like, people ask me like, yeah, like, now I'm in recovery and I see other people dieting and doing this and that, like, Elisa, what can I do? I'm like, I don't know, because I know when I was deep into that, I wasn't open-minded enough. I wasn't receptive to that because I had my own beliefs and everything. It would have maybe pushed people away even. So, but what I tell them is that you lead by example. Be their fully recovered person you can be, and then maybe your friends, or whoever you meet, they will be positively influenced just by your example, not by what you say, but what you do and how you are.
I was going to ask you that if you happen to see a friend experiencing this and you're seeing the pattern of behavior, but much like
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of trauma in our lives, until somebody is ready to get the help, you can't force them
Mm-hmm.
to have the
Yeah,
help. And that
yeah.
was you answered my next question already. The other
Yeah.
one.
But maybe if you are vulnerable and you share your experiences or something, it will urge them also to talk about their experiences and kind of open up and be trusting. And but also don't then jump on the, telling them what to do, but just in a over a period of time, they will start to trust you. And maybe then they will also trust you around this area if they already see that you are most of the time like listening and compassionate, and you love them as they are. Yeah.
That's a great place for us to end on. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and talking about something that's very difficult to talk about, your journey. Check out all of her stuff. It's amazing. I'll post it in the description of this podcast. But for those in recovery or wanting to get into recovery, I think this is a great first step. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, I'm honored to be here. Yeah, thank you.